Hi friends! So chapter 14 was really quite the doozy, wasn't it? We've got Grandpa Al, Frank, Watson trying to figure out what happened to Clink and Clank. And Grandpa is just speeding down to City Hall where the science fair is being held. And he's like, listen, you guys get in there. I'm going to find out what happened to Clink and Clank. They're like, bet. They go in and you've got Watson's got his gum. Frank's got his antimatter motorbike. And he knows, I'm definitely going to win this thing. I'm going to win that money. I'm going to give it to Grandpa Al. We're going to save the laboratory. It's going to be awesome. They get in there and Mayor, Mr. Johnson, president of Grabco, make this big announcement that we're not even going to look at anybody's projects because we found the most amazing project created in the last 50 years. So don't worry about it. We know who the winner is already without even looking at anybody's project. And the winner is T. Edison and his antimatter motor. And Frank and Watson are like, what? That's our invention. And Edison is like, yeah. Guess what? I'm the winner. Mine is the best. I'm going to give everybody $1,000 of the prize money each. And everyone's getting free power for a year. So the crowd is like, yeah, Edison. All excited. Frank is like, what is going on? He can't find Watson, so he's thinking Watson's probably part of the group excited to get $1,000 because he can't find him. Frank is so mad, he takes his antimatter motorbike, crashes through a window. Nobody even notices because they're all just, Edison. And that's what happened in chapter 14. So let's find out what happens in chapter 15 because I can't believe that Edison pulled this off. Took my poor guy Frank's antimatter motor. Here we go. On the sandy ground at the top of the highest hill, under the oldest oak tree in the Midville Forest Preserve, the last wave of the Red Ant Army attacks the entrance to the Black Ants' Hill. A line of giant-headed black soldier ants meet and mow down the charge, easily chopping the red ants to pieces with their jagged, oversized mandibles. The invading Red Ant Army is reduced to a scattering of heads, abdomens, and thorax parts, bent feelers, and ripped-off legs. The Black Ant Army is victorious. A speck appears in the blue sky near the horizon. The speck grows larger. The speck takes the shape of a bike flying above the ground, carrying a hunched-over figure. The flying bike zooms into full size, close up, banks around the oak tree, and drops suddenly and quickly to the ground right next to the Black Ants' Hill. One large sneaker-covered foot swings over the bike and down, right on top of the band of black soldier ants, smashing two flat and scattering the rest. The kid wearing the sneakers sits down on the slate rock under the oak tree, folds his arms across his chest, and stares out over the whole town of Midville spread below, thinking 1,000 thoughts, electrical impulses in his brain jumping from neuron to neuron, oblivious to the ant chaos he has just caused under his rubber-tipped shoe. Frank Einstein, because really, who else drives a flying bike, thinks. The earth revolves, time passes, Frank feels flattened, like he's been stomped by a giant shoe. The ants next to Frank's sneaker begin digging a new tunnel, molding a new anthill. Frank mutters darkly to himself, best invention ever, single drop of water, the Edison antimatter motor. Frank forms thoughts of smashing, breaking, throwing everything away. The earth revolves. Frank mutters more, even Watson? Robots lost? Oh no, Grandpa Al! At your service! Frank looks up to see Grandpa Al, who has just stepped out from around the oak. Huh? How? What are you doing here? Grandpa Al slings off a small rucksack and sits down on the rock next to Frank. I heard about the science prize, and I didn't have any luck tracking down Clink and Clank, so I thought I might just hike up here and take in this great view. Frank looks out over Midville. Nothing great about it today. Everything is wrecked. What a disaster. Grandpa Al hands Frank his canteen. Oh, I don't know. It's pretty much the same world it was yesterday. Sun still shining, oak leaves still working their photosynthesis, these ants right under us still digging and hauling. Frank takes a long swig of water. It does taste good. But the science prize, clink and clank, your shop, your place, none of that's a big deal. You still got that Frank Einstein brain of yours, right? Yeah. You're still Frank Einstein, right? Yeah. So you can keep asking questions and finding your own answers. We don't need trophies or prizes to do that. We're scientists. Frank looks down at his sneakers. He sees a familiar looking shape, an insect leg, just like the one he found in his lab. Frank picks up the leg, crushes it between thumb and finger, and sniffs a familiar sharp magic marker scent. Right, says Grandpa Al. Suddenly, everything falls into place. Frank looks up. In his mind, he connects the insect leg, the kidnapping of the robots, the antimatter motor. Ant leg, says Frank. Ant leg? Mr. Chimp? Edison? That's it! Of course it is. Grandpa Al leans back and takes in the view. Glad we could have had this little chat. I know who kidnapped Clink and Clank. I know how Edison got that antimatter motor. I know where to go next, and I know what to do next. Then what are you waiting for, Frank Einstein? Shake a leg. So, where are Clink and Clank? Asked Watson. Oh, you guys, we're on chapter 16. I just got so excited I started talking. Chapter 16, page 135. So, where are Clink and Clank? Asked Watson. Here, says Frank, pointing to a spot on the Midville map hastily pinned above the workbench. He makes a red X over the outline of a single building at the southern edge of Midville, right next to Lake Genevieve. And smelling a crushed ant told you this how? No time to explain, Watson, but I am glad you didn't fall for that Edison pitch. Oh, come on, Frank. You know I'm a better friend than that. I got trampled, and I always freak out when... Okay, good to know. Frank interrupts. But what all this means is we need to get to Edison's place now, before he realizes he should destroy the evidence. Watson smiles. Good to know is probably the nicest thing Frank has ever said about their friendship. He would like to hear more, but Frank is already busy marking a flurry of X's on the Midville map, seemingly at random. What do you see? Frank quizzes him. I see that you marked up my dad's map that I told him I would take care of, and that now I'm already in trouble and we haven't even left your lab. Connect the dots, says Frank. All the properties that Edison's family has bought up over the past year and kicked people out of, and this building, Grandpa Al's. Frank connects the X's. A big red circle. So Edison is building a racetrack? A gigantic donut oven? I don't get it. Frank puts up another map right below the Midville map. It has an almost identical circle on it. A map of CERN, the subatomic particles physics lab buried under Switzerland and France. It's that place Grandpa Al was telling us about, where some of his scientist pals work. The ring is part of a machine called the Large Hadron Collider. Right, says Watson. Now I really have no idea what you're talking about. It's the coolest thing, says Frank. A 17-mile ring that speeds up subatomic particles to almost the speed of light and then smashes them together. Like racing two really, really small cars around a huge racetrack in opposite directions and then smacking them perfectly head-on. Really? Really? Why? Why? Frank points to the matter section on his wall of science. To record what happens after the collisions and uncover the true nature of matter and antimatter. Think of it as figuring out how those two really little race cars were built by looking at the pieces that come out after the crash. Watson scratches his head and nods. So, Edison's been secretly building his own collider ring thing and trying to make antimatter all along? Exactly, Watson. And yesterday, he somehow found out that I beat him to it. So last night, he had Mr. Chimp robot nap Clink and Clank so he could steal the secret of my antimatter motor from them. Wow, says Watson. So, Edison is likely in this building. Frank stabs an index finger at the Midville map, right next to Lake Genevieve, for the water supply he needs to cool all the subatomic reactions. And he's probably hiding Clink and Clank there too. Watson jumps up. Oh, we know that building. It's a big black cube, but that thing is built like a fortress. How are we ever going to get in there? Frank studies the two maps. May I please have a stick of your gum, Watson? Sure, I have plenty. I couldn't even give it away at City Hall. Here, take 2 or 3. Frank takes 1 stick of gum and tucks it carefully into his inner lab coat pocket. 1 should be just fine. And what does this have to do with ant legs? More later, says Frank, motioning Watson toward the door. Right now, we have to be quick and inconspicuous. Let's roll.